Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, I'd like to welcome onto the stage Miguel Gomez from Cornell University. So over to you, Miguel.
Thank you, Claire. I'm going to talk today about controlled environment agriculture and I want to convey to you all the excitement that there is about CEAs in the Northeast and beyond, and I will share with you some of the research that we are doing at Cornell regarding this industry. And personally, I think it has a bright future, but I think there are many things that we need to understand, especially in cold climate regions. So first, this is Neil Matson is our leader at Cornell. He's in horticulture, and he has been leading the effort of our work in controlled environment agriculture. So, okay. So I just want to convey what's happening in the Northeast and in cold climate regions in the U.S. 3 years ago, we had a small meeting with horticulturalists, economists, produce growers, and financial institutions. We were 12 people. We met 3 years ago in Cornell, discussing about the work that has been done for years in controlled environment at Cornell, and the industry promoted this meeting. So since then, we created the controlled environment agriculture group at Cornell, and we have a meeting with industry, with financiers, and with academics every semester. November, we had our last meeting. We had about 120 people from industry, from banks, from financial institutions, growers, and academics. So there is a lot of momentum, a lot of interest in this concept, in particular in the Northeast. So, yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so just I'm going to organize my talk first to tell you a little bit of what is controlled environment agriculture, give you some of the examples, then talk about some of the challenges and some of the research findings that we are starting to have, and all this research agenda is driven by industry. They tell us we need to know about this, we need to know about that, we just do it. So CEA, an innovative method of growing plants that involves creating optimized aerial and root zone environment, focusing on production benefits such as high quality plants, predictable crop timing, consistently available quantity, and limited environmental impact. So there is a wide range of CEA operations, ranging from high tunnels to just modifying the environment using soil and the basic elements of production. But then we also have greenhouses, as we can see here, and we have also rooftop greenhouses attached to retailers, which is a concept that has been very successful, very attractive to many growers and retailers in the US and elsewhere. And we also have examples of plant factories, vertical farms. This is an example in the Netherlands. This is my colleague Neil Matson, and in their facilities. Lots of interest on research and understanding what the economics and the marketing strategies for this type of operations are. So CA is all about control. All about control because we can control completely the environment, including temperature, amount of light, the carbon dioxide, amount, relative humidity, and in hydroponic, typically these operations is mostly hydroponic and soilless growing systems, and the trend is towards a completely automated process of seeding, transplanting, and packaging over time. Why CEAs? So there are several factors that are attractive to industry, and it was the driving force of creating our group. So one is to have fresh, highly quality produce free of pesticides or almost free of pesticides, locally grown, year-round production, consistent, reproducible quality. Water, for example, in not even the most sophisticated operation, water can be 20 times more efficient than in field production, and it's very space efficient. For example, in lettuce, you have 20 to 50 times the amount of production per unit of land in comparison to field. So when we think about the concept of urban or peri-urban farming close to consumers, land becomes a resource that is very expensive and it becomes very attractive. So let's look a little bit about what's going on in the US in terms of crops under protection. And this is from the most recent data. So things are even changing now, but the most recent data is from the 2014 Census of Horticultural Specialties. So when we think about total production, annual production was about 260,000 tons. And of that, hydroponic production is the vast majority, about 60%, and value of about 800 million per year. So when we look at the products itself, almost the bulk of the production is tomatoes, followed by cucumbers, and this is in the US again, then herbs, and lettuces, and then followed by others here. So, but we can see that about half of the value of production is under protection is tomatoes. So, when we look at trends of growth, we can see that in the US, the amount of crops of just thinking about the number of operations has more than doubled in a very short period of time. In 1998, had about over 1,000 operations doing this, value of a little bit over $200 million by 2009. 10 years later, there was a modest increase to almost 1,500, doubling the amount of sales, but in just 5-year period, the increase was dramatic. We added almost 1,000 new operations doing protected growing crops under some sort of protection and giving us this total that is quite important. So that's the US. So production acres in greenhouse vegetables, for example. And let's compare how is the US with respect to our neighbors in Canada and Mexico, and we see that we are still very small relative to our both neighbors. Mexico is the leading. This is 2011. There is not lots of current information about this, but is leading the pack by a lot. Acres were almost 3,000 in 2011. Canada about 1,000, and the US at that time about 574. So, and you see the distribution in the main crops, cucumbers and peppers and strikes. It's very interesting. Tomato in Mexico is the bulk of crop protected agriculture in that country. So when we think about I have some pictures, but when we think about CEA crops and systems, there are two types. One is the leafy greens herbs, which is being produced lettuce, kale, pak choi, baby leaf greens, basil, and microgreens. Systems, usually deep water culture and nutrient film technique. And then when we think about vine crops like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, eggplants, systems are, the most popular systems are the rock wool or coconut slabs and Beiro buckets or Dutch buckets or bag cultures as well with potting mix. So just some of the pictures. This is a deep water culture production, baby leaf greens in a pond. See the nutrient film technique. In this technique there are these pipes and with holes, and then you have the nutrient flowing through these ducts that you see there. Another picture of that to see the detail, irrigation system, nutrient flowing through. When we think about high wire production, we have the wire that supports the vine, gutter height of greenhouse between 18 and 21 feet, 6 to 7 meters. So these are very high greenhouses using, in general, drip irrigation and using rock wool and quartz slabs, small roots for a large plant, and then frequent irrigation required. And plants are growing in tall canopies, sometimes even more than 10 feet. With even double row systems. I'm going to show you some of the in the case of tomatoes, for example. Yeah. So just to give you an example of how productive this can be if everything goes well. If everything goes well, if you have a crop, looking at the crops, pounds per square feet per year, or pounds per acre per year. In lettuce, we can produce 23 pounds per square feet per year, or about a million pounds in an acre. Cucumber, about 700,000. Tomato, about half. In the same, and sweet pepper, half of what tomato productivity is. But we can see these yields, if everything goes okay, are impressive yields in a very small space of land to produce lots of produce. So just an example of the economics of this is that you think about 1 acre of CEA lettuce, the construction cost, depending on the technique, will be between $1 million and $2 million. Annual energy costs will be about $125,000, which is the main cost, one of the main items of cost. It will employ 7 skilled workers, and the yield will be about up to $1 million pounds. So the gross revenue can be between $1 and $3 million per year. So one thing that is important is that CEA technology is scalable to any size farm. For example, one of the things that we are doing, again, following industry and our meetings, they want to know exactly what sizes of operations will make sense in the Northeast. So for example, we know that in tomato you need to be very large. In lettuce, you can be very profitable with a small operation. I'm going to show you some numbers in a little bit. Anyway, so one of the key issues that we see in the industry still, in the middle of all this excitement and actual investment that is happening, in particular in New York and New England, is the problem of securing financing for capital-intensive business with low margins. We have a lot of MBA students that are starting their business, investing in this type of operations, and they are securing finance from investors from different institutions. So some of the challenges is to secure financing, show that you are profitable. Big constraint is the availability of skilled and unskilled labor. We are developing at Cornell and with other SUNY state institutions a curriculum for CEA managers, resulting from these meetings with industry, need processing and marketing infrastructure, and high energy cost, especially lighting. In terms of lighting, we just got a grant from the National Science Foundation, and we are working on a consortium with the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and Cornell Engineering and the College of Agriculture, because there is huge potential to decrease the amount of light required using LED and other types of specifications, and we may be able to really reduce the cost of lighting. Moreover, preliminary research shows that the type of light that you use has a lot of influence on the quality of the product, flavor and texture. So we have a 3-year project that we are experimenting with lighting and energy in this. So there are going to be improvements in more energy efficient operations. Is a big interest of the industry, same as automatization of everything that we can be automatized, so we depend less on labor. So I'm going to share with you in this 15 minutes that we have, so you have time for questions of 2 studies. One is that we wanted to start to learn, and this is an ongoing set of studies. I'm showing you here what we now know about what is the perception of the consumer in the Northeast of CEA vegetables. So we did a study with Neil and graduate student Irene Nishi. We did a lot of studies with consumers manipulating information about the product to understand how will they value a CEA product produced locally in New York, labeled as New York. So we focus on tomato and lettuce because those are the 2 most important CEA crops in New York State. And the objective is to measure difference in willingness to pay for lettuce and tomatoes with manipulating the origin, focusing with New York State and out of state, and growth under different production system, CEA versus field grown. The question is, are there differences between the valuation of consumers between field grown and CEA grown? And we gave them also more detailed information of the characteristics of these 2 systems to understand whether information affects this valuation. So we run about 25 sessions in different cities. These are people that we selected according to the profile of a primary shopper of households. This is Irene here, and this is an auction that we do. This is, for example, some of our experiments on the beef steak tomato. So we present them with product. They are actually buying the product, and we do an auction that is binding, so we are sure that the consumers are revealing their true willingness to pay. So we gave them 4 categories of tomatoes and 4 categories of lettuce. Each category is a combination of origin and production system. One is a CEA grown New York State, field grown in New York State, CEA out of state, and field out of state. So we did an auction procedure, and they indicated the maximum willingness to pay for 8 ounces of each tomato and 8 ounces of each lettuce. And we collected demographics to understand whether different demographic characteristics will affect the valuation. So these are our two products, beefsteaks and these lettuce. Sessions, we did some sessions in which we just told subjects, okay, this tomato is greenhouse grown in New York State, field grown in New York State, nothing else. In other sessions, to other consumers, we gave them a lot of information about this system. So for example, greenhouse grown in New York, we gave them information that greenhouses allow growers to control conditions, miles travel, if it is grown in the state, about in average 150 miles, and the job generating characteristics of these operations. We did the same for field grown in New York State, for example. You have less control, same distance, and pretty much field grown and CA grown in terms of tomatoes, you have the same amount of employment per unit of output. So what did we learn? So notice that, and we have done this again many times, so I'm starting to feel very confident to these results. So when we look at the baby lettuce, notice that the average willingness to pay for 8 ounces is higher for the New York product, regardless of the type of production. Yeah? This was very interesting because we were expecting that consumers will penalize the non-natural characteristics of the CEA product. But we have done this many times in different markets in New York State in particular, and these appear to be consistent. They will penalize the fact that it's out of state, so the willingness to pay is slightly smaller. Okay? So this is baby lettuce. In terms of the beefsteak tomato, a little bit different. We see that the highest, and these are just averages of willingness to pay for 8 ounces, which is about one big steak tomato. It's field grown locally. It has a little bit of a premium over the field or CA produced locally. Useful for the industry, even though it doesn't reflect the real cost of their operation. They can use that as a tool to do sensitivity analysis to see what will be my cost if I do things differently. So the assumption tab explains how this interactive spreadsheet works. The tables and figures change. Everything will be changed according to the parameters we give. And there are 5 tabs: assumptions, input, cost estimate, results. So this is the tab of inputs. So inputs, basically, we are asking the inputs tab required data on production. What are the characteristics, the size, how many bays, etc. Space use efficiency, spacing of plants, and users need to give us information in the blue box in terms of capturing the characteristics of the facility, in terms of production, spacing, what type of lighting we use. Then what type of heating system you use, what labor, what are the characteristics of labor, and other materials that you use. Okay? So that's yeah. Then based on these inputs, what we get is some initial cost estimates. So we get estimates for variable cost, for labor, for supplies, for each one of these items that I mentioned. Users have the ability to modify these costs, because everybody does things slightly different or very different. And then we also have asked them, okay, give me information about your fixed costs, We have some placeholders in blue, but a grower can select a different one. So we have in greenhouse structure, environmental equipment, all this. They can set different parameters. Exactly. And then we get some basic revenue and some basic annual expenses for this operation in particular. You get an annual operating profit, and you get some metrics: variable cost, fixed cost, total annual cost, and annual profit per head, per square foot, per house, per acre. So to understand, for example, in this simulation in particular, excuse me, annual profit per head is 0.26, given the parameters that this particular unit represents. So these results will change automatically if the person decides to change the parameters. And then we have some space in which we do a lot of simulation analysis, different prices and different levels of output to understand what the profitability is. And I'm going to skip this very briefly, and I will just show you to illustrate that we can do some sensitivity analysis. For example, one of the natural questions was, with natural gas is this: what if I use fuel oil? If you use fuel oil, actually your profit decreased by 40%. This is the actual, actual prices with actual production goes down to this amount. So it decreases. And then it gives you different scenarios of high, low output, and high, low, and average prices. So for example, also we do labor costs. What if your labor increases by 20%? So using this tool, we are able to tell the grower actual profits may decrease by 30%. Your profits are very sensitive to labor cost, and so on. You can think about what will be if I'm able to use my utilities more efficiently. Actual profit increased by 6%, for example, etc. Packaging cost, etc. So in sum, there is growing interest in CEA operations, in particularly in the Northeast. Investment is happening. Cornell, as I told you at the beginning, we met on a semi-annual basis with industry. We started 10 people. November, we have 120 people in a big room in our school discussing issues of the industry. So I think there is a lot of momentum. I think we need to do a lot of research to understand not only the economics of costs and consumers, but also the supply chains that will make this industry viable, the marketing strategies and the business models that are likely to succeed, particularly in the Northeast. So with that, I thank you, and this is Cornell. We are blessed with a beautiful lake. It's extremely cold today, but that's probably in the summer. So, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gomez. We have time for questions.
In your costs, you don't include depreciation as part of the cost of goods?
Yes, definitely. We are analyzing those costs and depreciating the use of all the fixed.
Okay, because I didn't see it in the graph as one of the costs.
Yeah, no, we don't. We aggregate them in annual costs, but we have definitely an.
The other question is the margin difference between growing, say, tomatoes in New York State and otherwise, to me, doesn't look like it is conducive to be able to fund an operation in New York State. The differential is too small. What's your viewpoint?
The growing.
So you showed about a 53% differential between the premium for New York State grown controlled environment or coming in from another area.
Yes.
I don't think that differential is enough to justify the investment. Do you?
So, investment in New York State in large dedicated greenhouses to produce tomatoes is increasing in Syracuse, between Syracuse and Buffalo. Projects are expanding, so because it's not only the price premium, but also the type of the tomato and the quality of tomato year-round, the year-round supply, consistent quality, being closer to the source for the supermarkets that are purchasing this type of tomatoes in New York State in particular. So your point is very interesting because these are a consumer willingness to pay. It's not retail buyer willingness to pay, which usually retail buyers do not pay price premium for local product.
Right, so that's the inherent problem, is that your focus group is on what the consumer prefers,
Yeah.
but the retailer calls the shot, and the retailer is not going to pay more. In general, they pay a premium of 53 cents a pound,
Absolutely, the
maybe
retailer.
2%,
Yeah,
but
the retail buyer, except if you are a natural food store, they tend to pay a little bit of a premium for local product, but not the traditional supermarket.
well, but there's just a small amount of growth in New York State. I mean, in other words, if you really look, your graph showing Mexico, the truth of that is Mexico had zero greenhouses. If you look at the statistics 10 years earlier, the U.S. and Canada were far ahead of Mexico.
Yeah.
Mexico in 10 years surpassed the U.S. and Canada, and they did so because of their lower cost of production, because that's what the retailers want. So now they control 60% of the capacity. So that's why I'm asking the question. The trend is more and more coming out of lower cost regions, not just states, but countries.
Yeah, no, I
And I
agree
don't see
with
how
you.
the investment can pay off long term.
I agree with you, but let me give you a counter example to that. Aldi discounter is procuring tomatoes grown in greenhouses in New York, and it's economically for them. I agree with you that okay.
Other questions from the group? Well, with that, let's show our appreciation one more time, Professor Gomez. Thank you. In just a moment, we'll have...